Hello and welcome to this Be Smart About Art show. My name is Susan J. Mumford, and I'm here today to talk with you about the topic of discounting art. Now, every Tuesday on the show, we talk about the business of boosting your business. And so that's the reason that this topic has come up. I've had a lot of artists and gallerists and other people in the art world saying to me that surely this is a great time to be discounting, surely that's what they're expected to be doing. I mean, I have heard person after person after person saying this and assuming that that's what they need to be doing. There have been comments about, oh, isn't this a great time for collectors to be acquiring pieces? And whilst it is true that you do see some people discounting, do you really have to? And is that what's expected? And so, what I want to do today is talk with you about several different points. One is actually going back to bare basics of the principles and best practices behind, say, putting art into a sale. I think it's a really good comparison because this would be kind of like putting your art into a period of a sale for some time. And then secondly, let's tackle this question specifically and with some depth and consideration of how you might also think outside of the box to essentially attract new clients, existing clients, in order to sell your services, your goods, whatever it is that you offer, and you might even be able to do something new as well. So first and foremost is this question about putting art into a sale. Now this has, it's S-A-L-E for those of you who are from different places, and my accent is known as being mid-Atlantic or posh American apparently. So people have asked me this question about putting art into a cell in the various workshops and talks I've given over the years. And is it okay? Absolutely yes. In principle, it's fine to put art into a cell. What you need to do is put some parameters onto that. So firstly, you give it a time limit. So your work is discounted by X amount from X date to X date. And then secondly, what you do is you put onto your invoice the full amount, and then you put the discount on there and then the resulting amount. And what that means is that that really helps people to understand that when they get that discount, that they wouldn't have been, say, ripped off beforehand, paying the full price. This isn't something that's trying to get them. Actually, what's happening, and you're making it really clear by the way you're presenting this, is that you are giving them a sweet deal on something because they're getting that item, it might be a work of art, for example, at a lesser amount than the normal full price. And so if you are the collector, you're going, wow, I want to snag that while it's possible. And therefore, you might actually want to give a pretty limited period of time for sales as well. You wouldn't probably want to make them too long because then people start to take them for granted. They don't really see the added value. They just start to think that that's what the actual price is as well. So very, very interesting when it comes to the idea of psychology and putting things into sales. The other point as well to consider here is when you're thinking about this, I mean, what about doing something live, offering something at a special price, but you can only snag it if you're doing it at that point in time. I mean, that brings to mind various initiatives that have been taking place over the years that we've had the internet, in which you've seen art being auctioned off during certain periods of time, people seeing, buyers, consumers seeing that they're getting a deal for something. And that's tapping into our psychology as human beings. That is all a lot of food for thought. Now, that final point that I was making about something being time limited and even thinking about something else you can do takes me to the second part of today's Be Smart About Art show, and that is this. How about what you're doing now? Now, if you are somebody who produces, say, photographs for a certain amount, should you suddenly be putting all of those into a COVID-19 cell? Not necessarily. Now, I've referenced beforehand on the show a recent webinar with Go Cardless CFO and that was Catherine Burkett. This was an excellent session in which she was talking about managing cash flow, and really what she was talking about applied to small businesses to large corporations alike. And what she was saying is that actually you don't need to discount your current services or expect to get a discount for the services that you're receiving for your business right now. What you instead want to do is to put in place reasonable payment terms. Think about people who you are either servicing or who are servicing your business, and consider how you can work together through this period to get together to the other side. It might be that you need to change existing payment terms. Perhaps normally somebody was paying, we'll take the example of somebody buying a work of art from you in installment payments. We'll pretend that they were doing monthly payments of whatever your currency is, 250, and they were doing that over a period of a year. They might actually need to extend the period of time. They might say, you know what, actually once a month is currently just too much. Could we please change our details, or change the frequency of that? And that's when you enter a conversation now, much like my approach to how do you put in place installment terms? How do you put in place payment plans? And I actually always say go to the buyer and ask them what works for them, and see if that's reasonable for you as well. I would apply the exact same idea here. So for those people who, in this instance, in this example, who were say normally paying monthly, but they might say, what we'd really love to do would be, instead of say paying 250 every 2 months, maybe what they could do is something even in between. Maybe they change the amount to being 300 or 350 every 2 months. But you basically, you work out something, you work out how much is left, how much is due, and you get to the end. And as ever, best practice is not releasing the work of art until it is fully paid for. Otherwise, you are taking a very big risk. That the exception of that is if someone is using a, let's say, interest-free loan scenario. There are a few of those about, both in the UK, the USA, Australia, and elsewhere. So somebody's doing that, that's a totally different situation. We're talking about when you are personally manually arranging payment plans for your customers. I mean, just for information, some information on that is that, in terms of if you want to look into what are some options for enabling your collectors to pay by installment, do go check out. If you're in the UK, look at Own Art. Own Art was set up by Mary Alice Stack. I remember talking with her about that probably a good 8 so odd years ago, actually maybe 9 years ago now. Gosh, time flies when having fun. Check out that. You need to be a gallery business, and the framework of which might have changed in recent years, but artists at this point in time are not individually able to access that. That could change in due course. And then I know that in the USA, there is a platform called Art Money, and Art Money also, just like Own Art, what they do is they enable collectors to pay in installments. And essentially, if a collector is going to do this, the way that that works is they actually get a credit check. The gallery helps them to run that. They're able to immediately take the work away, because the credit company, they pay the gallery, who can then in turn pay the artist, and then the collector continues to pay that company that's provide that credit, essentially. And that's the way that that works. So Own Art UK, and then we've got Art Money out of the USA, and then I think it's Australia and perhaps New Zealand. It did start in Australia, I do know that much. So that's some thinking when it comes to payment plans as that example. But then what about getting in some new clients? How about finding other ways of getting in some revenue streams? I mean, this period of time is really requiring that people make change. If I look at this very office, which I've actually been referring to sometimes now as a studio, this has been turned upside down in the last 5, 6 weeks. The green screen that I have got behind me was actually not there 6 weeks ago. That was some cloth that I had purchased in New York at my very loved B&H photo and video shop. That was probably 3 years ago, and that was just over in the corner of the office. I had a functioning office, I had a whiteboard behind me here. I mean, what has happened today, and I am getting to a good analogy here, is I have turned this baby upside down so that I've got the office area over there, and then I've got the studio area right here. And what we're finding, just in the same way that we're having to change some of our spaces. I mean, even in my front room in my home, I've got a little delivery area. It's some little books where I would normally have books, some little bookshelves. I now have a little basket where I can put food in there and give it, if it's wrapped in paper, 24 hours. If it's wrapped in plastic, I give it 72 hours. And that prevents having to kind of wipe everything down as well. I'm an eco freak, and so therefore I really like to prevent using my little wipes, my antibacterial wipes, whenever I can. I'm very glad to use them. At the moment, our absolute priority is, needless to say, health and looking after one another. So it's fine that I'm absolutely comfortable using those, but if I can be preventive instead, then I will be. And so what that means is I'm changing this environment. And you also need to think about changing the environment, that is, what is your offering for the individuals who previously supported you, who perhaps have been interested in supporting you, but they have not yet purchased from you, and also wholly new people who are perhaps coming out of the woodwork. I mean, that kind of thing is happening right now. It is intriguing. I was in a conversation just in the last couple of days with somebody who was saying, where have all these people come from? All of these people who beforehand you might have thought that they weren't going to give you business, and they come to you and they say, hey, I've been interested in that piece for all of this time, or I'm interested in commissioning you for something, or I'm interested in getting something from one of your artists. And you go, I never saw that that person was going to buy a work of art, or who is this person, or who is this person from my community? Whatever, even accessing people from thousands of miles away, because let's face it, at the moment, this online is a core form of access to people. And that means that you can now reach people who've got interests related to what you offer, no matter where they're based, so long as you can deliver to them. And that's where I want us to think about the two different types of revenue streams that you are offering. Those are goods and services. Now, some people, let's take, for example, the instance of business coaches. Deborah Henry Pollard, who is known as Dubs, and she co-hosts the member masterclasses with me on Thursdays whilst we're going through this whole crazy period. And she and I have co-facilitated the Art Biz Bootcamp live sessions as well. That's next going to be taking place in 2021. I mean, Dubs, if you look at, say, a coach, if what they do is they deliver a service, and that what they're being paid for is, well, a lot of people think of it as time. It's actually the value that they deliver. So somebody like Debs, she and her coaching, she's getting paid for the value that she's delivering. So that's a service. Now, what about a good? What might somebody who is a coach have as a good? She's an excellent example to bring up, because she produced a book, and that was probably 17 months ago, something like that. I think her launch was in about November, December of 2018, if I remember correctly. And in Deb's case, she has got this book in the What's Your Excuse series of books. So look up Deborah Henry Pollard, What's Your Excuse, and you'll find her book. So she's now got something that is a good, it's a tangible physical product. Now, you could by all means have a digital product as well, a good that would be a digital artwork that somebody might use as a screensaver. Somebody might even be essentially investing in some digital art pieces as well. That is something that is reality these days. I know that with blockchain, there is one Be Smart About Art member who is very active on the blockchain art scene. There are all different kinds of things that you can be doing these days. And I want you to think about that relationship between the goods, which are typically kind of physical products, but sometimes digital products, versus the services, because you can usually have those two things hand in hand. And simply by introducing that, what you're able to do is to release a full price offering that will get in some additional income and support the needs and add value to your existing customer base and prospective customer base. And we could carry on with this analogy as well, thinking about, or these examples, thinking about how you could create some clubs, some membership programs. I'm seeing people doing all kinds of things. And all of this comes down to, what are your values, and how can you stick to your values, really have that as your foundation in everything that you're offering. So you think about the mission of your enterprise, your public facing mission, and what is it that you are doing? If you're bringing beauty to the world, it's not to say you have to have some grand mission either, but what's that thing that drives you inside? I know the thing that drives me is fairness, And I know a big part of that is building communities that have got access. And that's what I'm doing here with Be Smart About Art. And another good way you could do that would be on your full priced items to be giving, that is kind of the existing ones, maybe give a percentage of proceeds to some local cause, something that is real to people, not something intangible, but saying you're helping these people locally who need to get some food or something like that. Health workers, all of these things are really, all of these initiatives are incredibly important. So, everyone, that is some food for thought for you today for today's Be Smart About Art show. It's been an absolute pleasure, as ever, to have you here engaged and bearing in mind what we've got on the screen behind me, which is participating, connecting, and growing. And that is a big part of our motto at the moment, which is essentially thinking about how can you participate in communities like this, how can you connect with other beings, and then how can you grow as a human and grow your business as well. Here at Be Smart About Art, we're here to help you thrive in a changing and ever increasingly so art world. Do check out the Be Smart About Art members program over at patreon.com/Be Smart About Art and join the conversation there. And then what you can do as well is submit your question for hashtag Be Smart About Art question time, which takes place every day on our Facebook show, the Be Smart About Art show. That is every Wednesday, Be Smart About Art question time. And what you're able to do as a member is get those questions to me, and I do my utmost to answer as many of those as I possibly can. Ciao for now. See you again soon on the Be Smart About Art show and online in general.